The courtroom was silent, yet the air felt heavy, like it could break at any second. All eyes were locked on Kody Brown as he sat stiffly at the defendant's table, his face caught somewhere between anger and shock. Just behind him, Robyn could barely hold herself together, her body trembling, eyes red, and then, without warning, she erupted. The woman who had stood by his side through thick and thin, often at the cost of her relationships with the other wives, finally lost control in front of everyone. Her voice cracked, raw and furious, and in that instant, it was clear something had shifted forever. And then came the moment no one saw coming. A name whispered in the courtroom. A woman tied not only to Kody, but to the family itself. The so-called fifth wife, hidden in plain sight for years, her presence raising more questions than answers. Gasps spread through the crowd as reality set in. This wasn't just about family disagreements anymore. This was betrayal, layered with secrets, exposed for all to see. Hi friends, I'm Sophia, and this is TLC's Sister Wives Daily. If you've been following this story like I have, you know we've seen plenty of drama from the Browns, but nothing compares to what unfolded here. Make sure you hit subscribe, drop a comment with your thoughts on where this family goes from here, and stick with me until the end, because the story only gets more shocking the deeper we go. The day of Kody Brown's arrest will go down as one of the most unforgettable moments in the entire Sister Wives saga. Fans who have watched the family for years always sensed that things were unraveling, but no one was prepared for the sight of Kody being escorted into a courtroom, flanked by officers. The sound of the door closing behind him seemed to echo louder than anything else. The once proud patriarch, who for so long tried to control the family's narrative, now sat in a place where control meant nothing. His head was high, but his eyes betrayed the weight of the accusations hanging over him. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense and electric. Spectators whispered in disbelief, some shaking their heads while others leaned in, desperate not to miss a single detail. It wasn't just another family disagreement or one of Kody's fiery speeches on screen. This was the law pulling back the curtain, forcing the family's hidden battles into the public eye. Robyn was impossible to ignore. She shifted in her seat, tears brimming as she clutched her hands together, her body rocking ever so slightly. For years, she was seen as Kody's most loyal ally, the wife who defended him even when it drove a wedge between her and the others. But here, under the pressure of the courtroom, her mask began to crack. Her emotions were raw and unfiltered, each sob echoing the betrayal she felt. Across the aisle, Christine and Janelle sat composed but watchful. Their faces carried no signs of shock, only a quiet recognition of the truth they had long known. Christine, who had broken away from the marriage, looked almost vindicated, like her decision to leave was now written in bold letters for the world to see. Janelle's expression was steadier, but her silence was powerful. The way she watched Kody wasn't with surprise, but with a quiet strength that said, "This is exactly who he is." As the judge read the charges, the room held its breath. Words like betrayal, misconduct, and secrecy rolled off the tongue with a weight that could not be ignored. Every sentence seemed to peel away the carefully crafted image Kody had tried to maintain. And as the proceedings continued, it became clear. This was only the beginning. For years, Robyn Brown carried the label of being Kody's favorite wife. Viewers saw how he leaned on her more than anyone else, how he defended her fiercely while often dismissing the concerns of Christine, Janelle, and especially Mary. Robyn stood by him, even when it meant being criticized by fans or resented by the other wives. But in the courtroom, all of that loyalty finally came crashing down. This was not the Robyn we were used to seeing. Soft-spoken, emotional, but always careful with her words. This time, she reached her breaking point. Her voice cut through the silence of the room as she rose, her hands trembling while clutching the files she had brought. Her tears weren't the same kind we'd seen on the show, where she cried about family unity or being misunderstood. These tears were different, angrier, sharper, born from years of realizing she had been played just like everyone else. She shouted at Kody, her words spilling out faster than the judge could even try to regain order. She had believed she was special, that she was the one wife he truly valued above all else. But the courtroom had revealed what she could no longer deny. She was just another piece in Kody's game of control and secrets. Fans of the show remember countless episodes where Robyn defended Kody, even as the other wives broke down under the weight of his favoritism. There were moments where Christine was dismissed, or Janelle was sidelined, and Robyn would swoop in, almost instinctively, to justify Kody's actions. It made her the lightning rod of criticism from fans, who accused her of being blind to the dysfunction around her. But in this moment, as her sobs turned to fury, it was clear Robyn was finally seeing the truth for herself. The courtroom was frozen in shock. Christine sat still, watching Robyn unravel, while Janelle kept her gaze steady. For Christine, who had been criticized for walking away, Robyn's outburst must have felt like validation. For Janelle, it was a reminder that even Robyn, the woman Kody supposedly cherished most, was not immune to betrayal. And when Robyn slammed the files onto the table, her voice breaking as she accused Kody of betrayal, it was like a thunderclap. This wasn't just a wife losing her temper. It was the public collapse of the image Kody had tried so hard to protect. For the first time, Robyn wasn't shielding him, she was exposing him. And that shift changed everything. The room was still humming from Robyn's eruption when another name surfaced, one that sent ripples through everyone present. Angela. To casual observers, she had been little more than a background figure, often referred to as the nanny, someone whose presence in the Brown household had stirred curiosity and even mockery among fans. But here, in the courtroom, Angela wasn't a quiet helper in the shadows. She was being spoken of as something far more explosive, a woman tied directly to Kody in ways no one expected. For the wives, the shock was palpable. Christine's eyes widened, her body leaning forward ever so slightly, as though she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Janelle stiffened, her jaw tightening, while Robyn, already reeling from betrayal, let out a gasp that cut through the silence. The so-called fifth wife. It was a title none of them had prepared to hear, and yet it fit all too uncomfortably into the puzzle of Kody's behavior. Angela's connection wasn't just rumor. It came with documents and testimonies that painted a clearer picture. The hours she spent around the family weren't merely about helping with childcare. They were about maintaining a presence in Kody's life that extended far beyond what anyone was told. For fans who remembered episodes where the nanny became a point of contention, like when Christine bluntly questioned why they even needed her, this revelation stung. Christine's skepticism, mocked by Kody at the time, suddenly looked like hard-earned wisdom. The betrayal cut deeper, because Angela wasn't a stranger. She had been allowed into the Browns' inner circle, trusted to care for children, to share family spaces, to be around the most intimate parts of their lives. For Robyn, this twist must have felt like the cruelest wound of all. She had defended the nanny's presence, stood by Kody's decision to keep her close, only to learn she was being deceived. The gallery buzzed with murmurs, and the tension was thick enough to choke on. Kody sat stone-faced, his usual bravado absent. His silence spoke volumes, as if even he knew there was no spinning this story anymore. The revelation of Angela as a hidden fifth wife didn't just fracture trust, it obliterated it. The Browns' world had been turned inside out, and there was no way to put it back the way it was. If there was ever a thread that tied all of Kody Brown's decisions together, it was power, and the currency of that power had always been money. The courtroom exposed this truth in ways that were both humiliating for Kody and vindicating for the wives who had endured years of manipulation. What had once been whispered suspicions on sister wives became hard evidence. Bank records, property deeds, and financial transfers laid bare for all to see. Christine and Janelle had long hinted at financial inequality, describing how Kody read resources into Robyn's household, while others were left struggling. Now the judge presented cold, undeniable proof. Thousands of dollars funneled disproportionately, debts hidden in the shadows, and promises made to multiple wives that could never realistically be fulfilled. The dream of Coyote Pass, The land Kody once flaunted as their future home suddenly looked less like a family investment and more like a smokescreen for control. Robyn broke down again as the documents were read aloud, realizing she, too, had been misled. Yes, she had received more than the others, but the scale of Kody's secret dealings showed that she was not a partner in power, only another pawn. Christine's lips tightened, her face reflecting both anger and grim satisfaction. This was the very imbalance she had spoken about before walking away. Now, the world could see it clearly, without Kody's spin. The judge's tone grew sharper, pointing out inconsistencies that made Kody's financial management appear less like incompetence and more like manipulation. His silence was damning. Gone was the fiery man who once dominated family discussions. In this room, stripped of his authority, he looked cornered. The wives weren't the only ones shaken. The spectators, many of them fans who had followed the Browns for years, couldn't hide their reactions. Gasps, whispers, heads shaking in disbelief. What they were seeing wasn't just the collapse of a polygamous marriage, it was the collapse of a carefully curated empire, built on the backs of women who had given their trust, their loyalty, and their lives to a man who demanded everything, but offered little in return. In that moment, the narrative shifted. This was no longer just about family drama. It was about accountability. Kody's grip on money, power, and control had defined his reign as patriarch. But in court, those very tools became the weapons that dismantled him. When the judge finally returned to deliver the verdict, the air in the courtroom grew so heavy, it felt impossible to breathe. All the whispers, the tears, the explosive revelations, it had all built to this moment. Kody Brown, the man who had once ruled over 4 wives with unshakable authority, now sat slouched in his chair, his face pale, his bravado completely stripped away. This was no longer the confident patriarch from Sister Wives. This was a man cornered, waiting for the weight of truth to crush down on him. The judge's words were steady, deliberate, and final. Charges of deception, financial misconduct, and betrayal of trust rolled out like hammer blows. Each accusation carried evidence that had already been laid bare. There was no denying it, no spinning it into another of Kody's infamous speeches. The gavel came down, and with it, the illusion of his control shattered completely. Robyn sobbed uncontrollably, her earlier fury now blending with despair. She had clung to Kody longer than anyone, defending him even as cracks appeared, but now even she couldn't find a reason to stand by his side. Christine, meanwhile, remained composed, her hands folded, her expression one of vindication. This was what she had warned about, what she had endured, and now the truth had finally spoken louder than Kody ever could. Janelle's steady gaze never wavered, but the faintest nod from her suggested quiet relief that justice had at last caught up. The spectators erupted, some gasping, others shaking their heads, many whispering about the shocking downfall of a man who had once sold his family as an example of faith and unity. But for the wives, this wasn't entertainment. This was the end of an era. As officers moved toward Kody, the symbolism was impossible to miss. The man who had demanded obedience, who had prided himself on being untouchable, was now reduced to nothing more than another defendant facing consequences. For the wives and for fans who had watched the saga for years, it was a moment of both closure and reckoning. The Brown family's story was forever changed, not by whispered secrets or family squabbles, but by the truth exposed under oath. And as Kody was led away, the message was clear. The empire he built on control, secrecy, and favoritism had finally collapsed, leaving only the women he underestimated standing strong in its ruins. The courtroom slowly emptied, but the echoes of what had just unfolded will linger for years to come. Kody Brown, once the face of polygamy in America and the proud patriarch of Sister Wives, had been stripped of everything that gave him power: his authority, his money, and the loyalty of the women who once stood by his side. What fans had long suspected, what his wives had endured behind closed doors, was finally dragged into the light. And there was no hiding from it anymore. Robyn's tears, Christine's vindication, Janelle's quiet strength. All of these moments painted a picture more powerful than any scripted scene. This wasn't just a TV storyline. It was real, raw, and irreversible. The truth had spoken, and it left behind nothing but fractured trust and broken illusions. The empire Kody built crumbled in the very place he thought he could control, under oath, in front of the world, with the gavel sealing his fate. For years, viewers wondered if justice, in any form, would ever reach the Brown family's story. And now, we've witnessed the shocking reality. A patriarch dethroned not by rebellion, but by his own secrets. The wives who once carried his burden now carry something far greater, the strength of survival and the courage to stand in their truth. And that's the story we'll continue to follow here. For years, viewers wondered if justice, in any form, would ever reach the Brown family's story. And now, we've witnessed the shocking reality. A patriarch dethroned not by rebellion, but by his own secrets. The wives who once carried his burden now carry something far greater, the strength of survival and the courage to stand in their truth. And that's the story we'll continue to follow here. Hi, I'm Sophia, and this is TLC's Sister Wives Daily. If this moment left you stunned, if you felt the heartbreak, the anger, or even the relief as the truth was revealed, then join me. Subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and be part of the conversation. This is just the beginning, and together, we'll keep uncovering the real story behind Sister Wives.